Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and listening into the podcast. I appreciate you. I say it all the time. I'll continue to say it. We would not have this podcast if it weren't for you. I really do appreciate you. And because you've been such faithful listeners, you helped us get ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes. So thank you for that. And we ask you to continue to subscribe, rate, and share the podcast with a friend. If you are inspired, share the podcast with a friend. All right. So now today, I'm excited about this conversation. I'll be talking with Vikita Poindexter. Now, let me tell you a little about Vikita. She's the president and CEO of a Poindexter Consulting Group, and she leads one of the nation's most trusted HR consulting firms, advising law firms, nonprofits, corporations across industries, including entertainment, construction, real estate, finance, and more. And she's the author of the inspiring book, Brokenness to Breakthrough. And we'll hear more about that later. She's a sought after expert witness and national speaker and has trained and advised thousands of leaders from C suite executives to public sector teams. Through leading with grace, grit, and greatness, she ignites meaningful and transformational change. Welcome, Vikita Poindexter.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. All right, so now you heard me say a little bit just as a way of introduction. Tell us anything. We'll unravel the story more, but just as a way of introduction, tell us whatever you want to tell about two things: who you are and what you do, just as an introduction.
Sure, absolutely. So I think for who I am, I'm just Vikita, right? When people get to know me, I mean, that's just who I am. I love the work that I do. I love pouring into other people. Excuse me. I started my firm out of necessity, right? And so I always like to just try to say that in the midst of adversity, trials, tribulations, struggles, you can come to have some of your biggest blessings. And so I'm a mom of two adult children. I'm a Gigi to my sugar plum, that my honey bunny, who is 3.5. So obviously I'm a first time grandmother to my first grandchild. And, hopefully my children will be listening. I want more. And I'm just just a girl doing God's work.
I love that. I love that. Gigi. I
Yeah, I'm
love that.
just Gigi.
Just Gigi. All right. So now, tell us, how did you come to do the work? Let's start with just starting your own firm, because I mentioned in the introduction, you're the president and CEO of Poindexter Consulting Group. How did you come to start that?
Sure. Thank you for asking. And so I've been in HR now for some time, right? I'm just going to say over 35 years, and in the next 5 years, it's still going to be 35 years. So I've been in HR for quite some time. HR is what I absolutely love. It's my passion. And so I didn't major in human resources, right? I wanted to be a pediatrician, love babies. And so,
Oh,
life kind of, took a different turn and I kind of ended up in HR. And so 26 years ago, I started my firm. I was working in corporate America, and my youngest, who is 27, so you'll see the correlation with the dates, wasn't expected to live to be 10. And then corporate America said, okay, you can't tell a word. And I was like, I just need a computer and a phone, and I can work from anywhere. And, my youngest spent the majority of his life in ICU down at Children's in San Diego. And so when they said no, I said, okay, well, that's not going to work for me because I'm a mom first. I'm always going to be a mom first. And so the vice president of legal and I were really good friends. And he said, had you ever thought about starting your own firm? And the thought had crossed my mind, but I was like, most people, can I do it? Can I sustain it? I got a nice 401k. I've got excellent benefits. Most importantly, I had health insurance, which was crucial. Let me get that word out, crucial for my son's medical. And so he said, if it's what you want to do, I'll help you because I think you'll be good at it. And so I made a decision and I said, okay. And I took a leap of faith, and that's how my firm got started. And here we are 26 years later.
it's amazing. That's amazing. And how's your son doing?
Oh, he's great. He's 27. And, he's a college graduate. He's got his bachelor's degree in architecture and his MBA in business administration.
Ooh,
Um, and I homeschooled him. He was, graduated high school at 17, went off to college, stayed on his own. So he's thriving, just absolutely thriving.
that's amazing that both of you together that you accomplished that, that you helped him get through that. So there's so much in that story that I'm going to go back and kind of unpack a little bit. But it's always I hear when I talk to different podcast guests who've had their own crossroads moments and they decide to do something different. It's interesting how other people could see your gifts. Like in your case, this man said to you, I believe you can do it. So other people often point out what we don't often see ourselves.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's true. And that's absolutely true. I think one of the things that I mean, I knew I was good in HR, right? I knew that that was my gift. But starting my own firm, I was like, I'm not quite sure I can do that. I have two children, and so my youngest was, very ill at one point in time. My oldest got really sick. I was at, and children's on the critical care ward, on the ICU ward, and it was like, I don't know if I have the capacity to take on anything else.
Mm,
But the one thing that I've always been is a fighter, right? When someone tells me no, it's like, okay, I'm going to do it anyway to prove them wrong. But this was a little bit different, right? This caused for me to step out of my comfort zone and really have to, take a leap of faith. The other piece to it, I didn't have a choice because I was not going to be at my son's bedside. I was definitely going to do that. So I just was like, okay, I'm just going to take this leap of faith. If I fall down, I'm gonna get back up. And so it's absolutely true. I mean, as I speak to other people, I can see their gifts and talents, even in my children. And they're like, well, I can't. If I can do it, you can do it. That's my motto. Because people are often concerned about failing. And failure is an event, not a person. So you are never a failure. Now, are you gonna fall? Absolutely. But you got to get back up and dust yourself off. I think that has a lot to do with the athlete that was in me as well. But I just think that that's, part of the qualities that God, equipped me with.
yeah, yeah. All right. So you mentioned being an athlete. Were you an athlete in high school or college or after?
Yeah, I played basketball in high school and college.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
My mom wanted this really nice, prissy piano player, and I wanted to play the drums. I grew up with my cousins. So, we were jumping off roofs playing, Batman and Robin. And she was like, I just want you to wear these dresses. And I was just like, I want my Levi's and my Chucks.
I love that. I love that. And that you still did it. And you and I have that in common. I love drums. I mean, I love uh, listening to drums from any genre. Still to this day, I have a conga drum set in my living room that I play. I say that loosely.
And it's
Never took any
funny.
lessons or anything. I just kind of, let's say, play around with it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I one of the first musical instruments I bought my grandbaby was some drums. I was like, and the piano that I took piano lessons when I was a kid, I still have it.
Oh, still have the piano?
I still have the piano. And so I'm going to
Oh,
refurbish it for my granddaughter if she decides to play. She loves music, but she's a guitar player. So she's got like 15, 20 guitars around this house. And it's always a jam session in the Poindexter household. So the
I
music didn't go to waste. It just kind of shifted from piano to drums.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love that you have your piano. I took piano lessons for 2 years. My mother was convinced that I had some natural ability to play the piano and signed me up for lessons. And then after 2 years, she's just like, you're not into it. I wouldn't practice. I would just want to go outside and play and do all the
Yeah,
things. And now looking back, of course, I would. And she said, you're going to regret it. She's talking to me like I'm an adult. When you're older, you're gonna regret this decision. I'm like, what do I know? I'm like 9 or something, you know? I
exactly.
was
I
like,
don't know what it is about our parents at that time because my mother did the same identical thing. Like, you are going to play the piano. I was like, I don't want to play the piano. You're going to sit here and you are going to practice for 30 minutes. And it was just like, really? But then, like, I can play. So there's been times when, we've been in church and something has happened and they need somebody to come and play the piano. And they look at me, I'm like, I am not getting up there. They're like, nope. But I've done it.
so your lessons paid off.
They
I have
did.
I have
Kicking
one
and
song that
screaming.
I can play. That's it.
Yeah. But that's kind of how it starts, though.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
And you know, I say this too because it's so funny. We often talk about, you know, the seeds that are planted within us that we don't want,
Hmm.
but they will manifest themselves whether you want them or not.
So true. It's so true. All right. So you talked about er, first thinking about having a medical career and then shifting to HR. When you shifted to your interest in HR, tell us about how that happened. Like,
Sure.
how'd you get
Absolutely.
in your entry point into HR? Yeah.
Sure. So, you know, I'm born and raised in Texas, right? I was born in Dallas, so I'm an avid Dallas Cowboy fan. So, for your listeners out there, I just believe the Cowboys are there for everybody else to play because I grew up on the Cowboys. I am a sports junkie by nature. And so, my parents went through a divorce, right? And so, well, I shouldn't say my parents. My mother at that time went through a divorce because he was not my father and relocated to California, which was a huge change for me because I had my whole life planned out. Because in Texas, they had magnet schools. And so I was going to go to Health Magnet. And so I'm a product of an educator. My mother had her PhD in education, and I hated school. So I was trying to find a shortcut. So I said, okay, if I can go to Health Magnet, I can be there and graduate from high school, and then I can go straight into nursing school and only be there for 2 years, then go to medical school. So that was my plan. And
Mhm.
so you want to make God laugh, tell him what your plan is. And so when things escalated at home and we had to relocate, we moved to California. And so California is completely different. And so I had to figure it out, not realizing that the same plan that I had, I could fulfill it in California. And so I barely went to school. I think I went to school on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and the other days I went to the beach. So because I felt like I had to refine myself. Like, who am I? What do I want to do? California's educational system was so behind in Texas back then. And so went to high school, went to college, not because I wanted to, but I'm an only child. That was my expectation being a product of an educator. And so once I got in college, I had an opportunity to do an internship with Mayor Tom Bradley's office. And I was trying to help individuals with disabilities find jobs.
Oh.
That was my launching pad to HR, right? And so not realizing, fast forward, 30 something years later, I'd have a child that was classified as being disabled. And so that's where, the interest of jumping into HR came from. Um, and then I said, okay, I'll go to law school. But at the time, when I was graduating college, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so I said, okay, um, I don't know if I could really be intense with 2 years of jumping into law school, because again, trying to find the quickest route to achieve things, um, if I had the capacity to be able to do that. And so after my mom passed away, I said, okay, HR is that happy medium, right? I can still be able to be the legal beagle that I enjoy and that I love, but still not have to go to school for another 8 years. And so after doing the internship with Mayor Bradley's office, that's where I said, okay, there's still all the legal compliances because you have the Americans with Disability Act that was coming down the pipeline. And so I really said, I think I could do this. And so from there, graduating, I ended up going to work for JW Marriott, and it kind of took a life on its own at that point in time. And I think that core position with JW Marriott set the foundation for my work in HR, just because of the way that they treated their employees. Their philosophy was, if you take care of the employees will take care of the business.
Mm.
And they had employees that were there 30, 40 years, seasonal jobs that would come back time and time again. And that's at the cornerstone for me.
Ah, I see. So you were fortunate to get that job because you went from an internship into a relatively, high level position for someone coming out of an internship, and that you were drawn to the work. So that was another gift of life to you because you really appreciated it. And so, what were you doing there at Marriott?
But so I started out as just as an HR coordinator, right? Just intaking, appointments that were coming in, doing the pre-screening for employees. Initially, it was a seasonal position because it was in Palm Desert, and so it's very seasonal there. And so that's how it started. And then I continued to grow. And then the course of that time period, when my mother passed away, because I went back to the desert to take care of her, I left Palm Desert. right? And then I went to work for General Electric at the time. And then it just, that my career path just continued to grow. And so after being with them for some time, being transferred back and forth from Northern California to Southern California, I ended up with a company that I stayed with for some time. I was like 15 years before I had to make that particular transition with my kid. And so, or with my son, he's still gonna be mama's kid. And so for me, it was learning the core foundations. California employment law is extremely complex. And so when I decided that this was something that I wanted to do and something that I wanted to continue to do, it was like a no-brainer for me.
Ah, yeah. When you let's go back a little bit way before uh Marriott and your career took off that way. Let's go back to little Vikita. When she
Mm.
was little kindergarten, maybe 5, 6 years old. Did you have anything that you loved or that you had a fantasy about being or doing when you were older, when you were little Vikita?
Yeah, I did. I had the best pediatrician as a kid, and I still remember his name, Dr. Perino. And
Ah,
so I suffered from a lot of upper respiratory issues, which is where my son gets some of his challenges. And so I was constantly, going back and forth to the doctor. And so he made me feel so comfortable. When my mother said, "We got to go to the doctor," I was like, okay, right? Not kicking and screaming. And so he was just the sweetest, the most compassionate person. And I remember having to have my tonsils taken out. And I said, "Dr. Perini, I want to be able to keep my tonsils." He said, "Absolutely." So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take them out. I'm going to put them in a jar, and then you'll be able to take them home. And I was like, okay, right? I believed anything he said. And I was like, okay. Well, that surgery was a little bit more intense than everybody thought, right? Because my tonsils were so bad, they had to literally pick them out. And so after I woke up, they had to remember I was like 5, 6, 7. And I still remember this. When I woke up, I said, "My throat is really sore." And he was like, "It's okay. Eat as much popsicles and ice cream as you want." Well, this is great. Not realizing that's what you need to do to keep the swelling down, right? And I said, "Well, where are my tonsils?" And I just remember him sitting at my bedside, taking my hand and said, "They were so bad. They were falling apart. You didn't want to keep them. You didn't want to see them."
oh,
Realizing I couldn't keep them and see them anyway, right? But I think it was his compassion, his bedside manners, his true, authentic love that said, "I want to do this. I want to be a pediatrician." When I got older, I knew that that was my calling, right? Like we always think, because I love babies. I was the babysitter for everybody. The babysitter, it didn't matter. And even as I became an adult, to this day, I can be in the store. I see a baby. Every baby is cute. I want to touch everybody, baby. I want to love everybody, baby. My work in churches is always in the nursery. So that was me. I was going to be that individual. But even in the midst of the shift from Texas to California, I knew that that probably wasn't going to happen because I was looking at all the great things, right? I didn't think about the loss. I didn't think about the child you can't heal. I didn't think about any of that. And so I was in high school and we had an ROP program and I did my work at the VA in Santa Monica and I got super close to a patient and the patient passed away. And I said, that is the reason why I cannot be a pediatrician.
mhm,
So I can love on babies a different way, but I
mhm,
can't take care of them because if something happened to a child, I
mhm.
would be devastated.
Yeah,
That was my affinity. That was my love. I mean, it still is today.
yeah,
Well, kind of expanded babies and puppies now, right?
yeah.
But that was my dream. That is what I wanted. I mean, I was so inspired by my pediatrician that I
Mhm.
said, I want to be just like him when it comes to taking care of people.
Yeah, I love that, and I do see the connection because you're still able to do that in a different industry, making sure people are treated with respect and care in the way that you were. Even when you said when you went to Marriott, that was the first thing you realized they took care of their people. That's the thing you were drawn to in that
Absolutely.
philosophy and mission. And so you're doing it in another industry. which helps people who might be thinking through right now, somebody listening, how to transfer one part of who they are into a different industry may not have may not be the same one. So that this is very inspiring. All right, so now let's go. So you had that wonderful model of someone how to care for people. So all right, so now you're in your HR career and you're doing that, and it sounds like you were enjoying doing the HR work. Is that true?
I was. I absolutely love HR, right? I think number one, I love the legal pieces of it. And so my mind is consumed with that. Everything I watch is legally, inspired, whether it's so funny. I have to tell you the story. Law and Order was my show. When I was pregnant with my son, I was bedridden. And that's all I watched. And it was whether it's Law and Order, Criminal Intent, Special Victims, all of it. Because I like to see from the beginning to the end. And when my son was born, and I finally got the chance to nurse him, right? If he heard that Law and Order theme music, he would stop dead in his tracks because even within the womb, he knew that music. And so from an HR perspective, yeah, not just the legal piece of it, just to make sure that people are compliant, or organizations are compliant. Because my personal philosophy is, if you take care of your employees, which is where this was adapted from, they'll take care of the business. If you don't, they'll shut it down
Hmm.
because disgruntled employees sue. And in
Hmm.
California, employment law is very challenging. So how do we mitigate risk and liability while still making sure that we are doing what's right by the employees?
All right, so now tell us about you gave us an overview about what happened when it was time for when you needed to shift the way you were working. You needed to work remotely, and the way the job was set up, you weren't able to do that. Bring us to that moment when, you decided you would have to do something different.
Sure. So that was a really quick decision. I don't fare well with ultimatums. And so, especially when it comes to my children. And so, you give me an ultimatum that says either do this or that, which was basically what transpired. It wasn't an opportunity to say, hey, I understand, right, that you need to. And I think, let me just say this first. I think it was most disheartening because my superior was a single parent. They were taking care of their own children. Yet and not nothing to the point as critical as mine. We're talking about my son's life or death. And you want me to be in an office to do what? Right? There wasn't employees that were coming back and forth. The majority of the work that I was doing was computer based. So a laptop, which I already had, and just the ability to work from wherever. And so I think for me, that was even more of an issue where I said, okay, fine. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and make this transition. It wasn't something that I thought long and hard about. It wasn't something that, I mean, I pray about everything. I was like, okay, Lord. And it wasn't, do I move? It was like, okay, I'm moving. And so I know you still got my back, but this is a little different, right? And so, but my philosophy, different struggle, same God. And so I understood that this challenge was getting ready to come up. I'm getting ready to lose my health benefits. I'm getting ready. And then I have to do Cobra, which is 10 times more expensive than anything else. But I didn't care about any of that. It was, I need to be there for my kid. And so I made the transition pretty quickly. You give me an ultimatum, I'm gonna give you a 2 weeks notice. That's just kind of the bottom line. You don't want my 2 weeks notice, then you can make it effective today. That's up to you. And so I changed, I just made that shift. And then I figured everything else out along the way. Um,
Oh,
so it wasn't like, okay, let me strategically think about, okay, if I make this shift, then where am I gonna get benefits? It was like, I don't care about none of that because God is still in control. I'm out, so to speak. And so that's when I just made the shift. Um, because nothing to this day is going to interfere with me taking care of my children, now my grandbaby. That's just not going to happen. And so I said, okay, I took, the words of wisdom that I got from my friend that worked from the organization. He said, I will help you get it started. And I was like, that's perfect, meaning all of the legal pieces, because I knew HR. I can
right.
do HR in my sleep. But an LLC versus an S corp versus a C corp, and who's my core clientele going to be? Websites. I don't know anything about any of that. But what I did do was focus on what I did know, and let somebody else help me with the rest.
Love that. I love that. You knew, and I think that's ideal for people who might be struggling with that now. they know they have a core expertise and just focus on that, and then let the other people who are experts in those other areas do that part of it. Now, what was the all right, the decision first, and then the friend said, "Here's something you can do now that you've made the decision to leave as quick as it was, and then the friend said, "This is what you can do next." Is that
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
sequence?
It was just that quick. So I went out and bought my own laptop. When Carrie was sitting in ICU, he and I were emailing back and forth. He was like, "Here, I'll help you set it up." So he helped me set up the corporation. He told me exactly what to do, who to go to. Um, I and we did that. And I said, I want to focus on small business owners because they don't have the legal team behind them in the event that something should happen. And now I'm stepping into being a small business owner and entrepreneur, which was frightening and terrifying. I said, so I think that's where I'm going to have my core market. And he was like, I think that's good. And so he put together all my legal contracts. He put together we kind of worked through like what pricing was going to be like. And over the years, that kind of kind of changed. But that was it. And then when Kiri was able to come home, um, and then thank God my daughter was old enough to be able to help take care of her brother. I networked like crazy because people do business with people that they know, like, and trust, right?
Mhm,
And so I went to every chamber event. I joined a networking group because I knew HR, right?
mhm.
And I knew that small business owners, they focus on everything else but HR, which is their largest area of liability. And so I began to get a client and then two and then three. And then my business just became referral based. And over the years, I tweaked it, add things, change things. And before you know it, 26 years later, here we are.
I
So
love
once
that.
I made the decision to say, I'm going to do it, and it just kind of took off from there. Were there some hiccups? Absolutely. Were there some challenges? Absolutely. But I can honestly say that it wasn't as difficult as I thought. So the fear that I was breeding into myself was I was doing that with my limited mindset to question my ability. And then this is the thing that resonated with me. I was trying to fight for a job that I was trying to make them better, increase their P&L statements, and was working hard, right? 50, 60, 70 hours a week, always on call, answering every question, comment, complaint, or concern. When this um, ultimatum was posed to me, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go do this for myself. If I'm going to work that hard, I'm going to do it for myself. It wasn't about being rich. It wasn't about being wealthy. At that time, it was just about me being a mom, providing for my kids.
Yes, yes. And I heard you say there were times when, of course, there's ups and downs, and there was some time when there was fear. The times that you had, or one or two times that you had the fear, how did you manage that? Or how were you able to keep going?
I think I didn't have a choice, right? I think that I had two individuals. There's 10 years between my two children. My son is 27, my daughter's 35. She's going to kill me, but that's okay. And so I didn't have a choice. When I would look in their faces, their whole being depended upon me, you know? And so when I would get discouraged or frustrated, I would look at both of them and say, okay, that is my motivation for going on. And so no matter how difficult it became, no matter how tired I was, no matter how frustrated I would get, I would say, okay, it is what it is. And that doesn't work. So let me just tell people right now. I was like, it is what it is, but I got to keep going. And so I think for me, that was my determination.
Comes down to it's come now for people to say your why, but
Right.
that was your why.
At
Excuse
that
me.
time. And so you have to shift the why though, right? Because you can't do things for other people. You have to, at some point in time, you have to become your why. And so that mindset shift is what I needed to make. Yes, I was doing
Uh,
it for them, but in reality, doing it for them, I was crippling myself.
oh, uh, Was there a defining moment when you realized that? Did something happen to trigger to say, hey, I'm doing this for them, which I needed to do just to get to where I am now, but now I need to make this shift? Did something happen or did it kind of organically flow?
No, I think that, and it's in my book, my testimony on, where I started as a kid to where I am today. My health started to suffer because I was so focused on everything and everybody else till I was neglecting myself. So my health was suffering, and I had to have a heart-to-heart conversation with myself to say, okay, you are going to have to do things differently. Now it's so funny because I'm in HR, right? And this is the very thing that I tell people: you can't grow and scale if you're trying to be a one-man show. And I was a one-man show.
Isn't
And
that
I was like,
interesting?
I am not hiring not one person because I don't want employee issues. I don't want challenges. I don't want to deal with none of that. Right. But I was burning the midnight all the early in the morning, the late at night. And so my health started to suffer.
Wow.
And the biggest thing for me was you are doing all of this for your children. But if you are not here, what's the purpose?
Yes.
So
Yes.
then I had to shift. And I had to deal with some unresolved issues in that it is what it is kind of world that I was living in to let me deal with the brokenness that I'm dealing with so that I can be the best version of myself for them, not just be their provider.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think that's such wisdom, and look at all the gifting that's coming from it because now you get to share your story through a book and talk in more detail about that for people to not have that experience that you had if they could prevent it. All right, so with that in mind, let's talk to the woman who is at a career crossroads. Let's say she is high achieving and it may not be such as intense as yours was with you have to life that was really life or death, but she's at the point where she's like she knows for sure I can't keep doing this, and she may have something in the background in her mind like kind of thought about doing something but kind of pushed it away or not. But she knows she wants to do something different. She wants to make a difference. She wants what she does next to have meaning and give her a sense of purpose and be in alignment with her purpose. So, what would you say to her based on either your personal or professional experience, something that might encourage her?
I'm like Nike, just do it. Absolutely, 100%, just do it. And so, because the only person that's stopping you is you. It is your mindset. And so stop self-doubting yourself because the only reason why we get to a crossroad is because we're doubting our ability to do whatever it is that we need to do. And or it's a lack of knowledge, right? And so when it becomes a lack of knowledge, then fear creeps in and then we won't move. And so I have always been a leaper, right? I will leap and then fall down and be like, okay, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna keep trying, right? Because failure is not an option. And I think the biggest piece is we always look at failing that we did it. Failure is an event. You are never a failure. So for the woman that is out there that is struggling with the next um, adventure, that's what we have to look at it. This thing called life is an adventure. It's a roller coaster, which I hate roller coasters. You'll never see me on a roller coaster at a theme park. But that's what life is. You got to hold on and go through the highs and the lows, the peaks and the valleys. But at the end of the day, that roller coaster always comes in and stops, right? So just do it, right? Even in the course of my life, I started out running a firm, didn't want to hire employees. Now I got a whole team of people, and was like, I should have did this a whole lot sooner. Writing my book, I mean, that took a leap of faith. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm ultra private, or at least I was. And so I realized that if I share my story with somebody else, hopefully that would be an encouragement to them. And so I just did it in the midst of all of the fear, in the midst of all of the self doubt, because there's nobody else doubting you. It is you doubting and limiting yourself. So you have everything that you need already inside of you. You just have to believe that. You have to believe that you are fully capable and able to do whatever that you set out to do. because you've already done it. This is just the next step in the trajectory of your life or career path or whatever it is. And so I would tell that lady, I would tell that woman, just believe in yourself as you did with every challenge and obstacle that you've had to overcome. This is just another notch in the belt, so to speak.
Yes, yes. I mean, I feel your passion as you're talking about it, and I hear them being encouraged as you're saying that. You know, Vikita, you've been so generous with your time. I want to honor your time. But before we tell people how they can be in touch with you and get your book, is there anything that I didn't get a chance to ask you that you were hoping to say or to talk about, or did you have one more thought? If not, it's okay, but I wanted to give you the opportunity just in case.
Sure, I would say this to that woman, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's just so resonating within me. You know, we have to understand our value. We have to understand our self-worth. We have to understand what we bring to the table. I would say for that woman that is leading with grace, grit, and greatness, because that's typically what we do. Always remember, if we don't have a seat at the table, we're on the menu. And so we have to stop being on the menu. We've got to be able to pull up not a seat, but we need to be able to pull the table and bring other women to the table. We also have to be able to encourage one another. We have to be able to lift one another up because women, we go through things that other people, other folks don't go through, especially when we are high achievers, right? I feel like I am just now with my adult children and with my granddaughter, just starting to live my best life, just starting. And so if I can do it, you can do it. So, number one, don't give up, get rid of self limiting beliefs, change your mindset. When you look in the mirror every day, you are supposed to say, girl, you look good today, but today you look especially good, right? Start your day with positive motivations to yourself. Never let anything negative come out of your mouth because whatever you say to yourself is what you're going to believe. When you say you got this, you got this. Even when you're like, I got this, but in my mind, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I got it. Because if you believe in the positive things that you say to yourself about yourself, then that's what's going to manifest. And you know how I know? Because I've tried both. I was negative Nancy, and then I was where I am today. And I would choose this today versus negative Nancy because I wore that like a mantle. And life was challenging, but the obstacles haven't changed. The adversity hasn't changed. The challenges haven't changed. Is how I have chosen to deal with them. I've chosen to do it with grace, with grit, and with greatness. So if I leave you with anything else, know, ladies, that you got this. And if there's anything that I can ever do, please don't hesitate to reach out.
I mean, what can we say after that? No more. All right. So you said they can reach out to you. Where can they reach out to you?
Well, definitely reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
if you're one of those individuals that's on social media, reach out to me on LinkedIn. But you can also reach out to me at Vikita at pcghr.net. Or just my business website is pcghr.net.
Okay. All right. And we'll be sure to put that in the show notes. And Vikita is Vikita for people who are listening. Poindexter, if somebody's listening in the car. Vikita, this has been such inspiration and such powerful. I mean, we can only imagine what's in the book when you get a chance to talk about the whole full story and talk about that resilience and the ups and the downs and getting through the downs. So I hope people really get the book and get even more inspiration, more than you've given us today. But I've been inspired by you,
Oh,
and I'm
thank
ready
you.
to go. I'm ready to keep going in
Oh,
the
I
midst of
appreciate that.
life's ups and downs. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your heart, your energy, and your spirit. I really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You can get the book on Amazon as Brokenness to Breakthrough. So feel free to grab that. But it was such an honor and privilege. Thank you for having me. I look forward to uh, just watching women thrive and excel and be all that, they were called to be.
I love it. Thank you for being here. Okay, everyone, I'd love to hear your response to the episode. You can reach me on social media and all the channels, but I spend most of my time on LinkedIn. at Robin L. Owens, PhD, at Robin L. Owens, PhD, and just send a message. And if you're in the crossroads and you're like, I just don't know what to do, just put next in the message and I'll reach out to you and offer you some support. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin.